you had Coreopsis like Baptisia, just Coreopsis. I went,
Well, there are so many types. The best known one probably is Moonbeam, which is pale yellow. But Daryl Probst, a friend and hybridizer in Massachusetts, has developed all these variations here. I won't go through trying to name them because he's got more than I could count. But his object is not to change colors, but to get reblooming types. So everything that he introduces will bloom starting late May into June, into maybe 4th of July. For the most part, they go out of bloom for a month or so and then come back into bloom in the fall. He has thread leaf types, which you can see based on, well, verticillata, native form. Coreopsis, by the way, is native. And all the way across the country, it's native all the way into the south in almost every state, with probably the exception of Alaska. And a good plant. I have a little problem with some of them over winter, and it's not hardiness so much. I think the species is by nature a bit short-lived. They'll go 2 or 3 years and then kind of fade out. And Daryl would not like me to say this because he's convinced that they're the answer to the fall chrysanthemum, and maybe so.
I thought when I first started seeing all these other colors coming out that there'd been crosses between lanceolata, the yellow ones.
Oh, there are probably
and rubra,
uncountable number of species, 50 or more native species around the United States.
Okay, good, because I have noticed that some of the pink ones, the straight species, will die out very quickly, and they just run away from themselves, like bee balm, and the center dies out.
Yeah, but it's a lovely plant anyway, and they're so bright and cheery.
This is Meteor Rising in our garden, which starts sometime in late June, early July. And that picture is in October, still going away.
And you can see all the buds on it. I mean, it continues to go until hard frost. Yeah. All right, we go on.
I wanted to throw a Coreopsis in and ask whether you've grown this one and whether you know.
I have grown it. I have offered it. In fact, it is one of the plants that Daryl uses a lot because, first of all, because it's extremely hardy, but he has hybridized some short ferns. Tripteris will grow up 6 feet.
Yeah. If the deer hadn't eaten this one, it'd be 6 feet up.
Yeah. Well, there are some short forms that he's used, and they are Tripteris is the most durable of the species that I am aware of. Okay, I can't say for every species because there are, as I say, so many. But hardiness is a factor with a lot of the forms that are native to the southern states and the western states. Tripteris is native more or less here and probably through the Midwest, and is extremely hardy, so that helps. And especially if you're using a dwarf form to cross it. There's a campanula. No, there's a platycodon in the front, I see.
Yeah, it blooms late, and we like the late.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Delphinium is, again, in this part of the world, a short-lived perennial, but I love them. They are so showy. I'm gonna make a suggestion to they like a really good rich loam, but they also do not like acidic soil, and a lot of soil in the east is quite acidic. If you lime them, and preferably with a pelletized lime, which is essentially slow release, you'll have much better results with them. I find them otherwise to be almost biennial. They'll go through one winter, they'll bloom, and then they'll kind of fizzle. There are so many colors, and again, some true blues. There's actually a true red one, which I've tried to grow, but it's impossible. But I don't care. Red is not my favorite color in the garden anyway. But
you're going to try to grow it.
Yeah, because like I got to see what it's going to do, you know.
The best ones we've ever seen are in Frank Cabot's garden up in outside of Montreal.
Yeah, well, outside of Quebec, way up the Four Winds. No longer alive, but Frank Cabot was a famous gardener, had a wonderful garden way north of Quebec, near the St. Lawrence River, but almost up where out to the sea. He had 7 and 8 foot tall delphiniums there with stems that were 6 inches through the middle. I mean, I tell you this, and I can't even believe it myself, but I saw it. I have pictures of it. Delphiniums love a foot or a 2 foot of constant snow cover from October to April. And if you give them that, the ground temperature underneath 4 feet of snow is basically just below freezing. It's not the same temperature as the surface temperature. And I think that's what they need. Also, the land he had was rather alkaline, and they do require that.
They were massive.
And they were
They were
massive.
massive.
And
They were,
We'll have to chime in for Sonia here to say that Sonia's husband Cam, our son-in-law, loves delphinium. And so Sonia goes through a lot in order to grow them regularly for him. And how long have yours lived, Sonia? I think you've had some that have made it.
I was just gonna I was gonna say there's at least one of the clump that's there since we put it in 10 years ago, and I'm thinking that it's because we are the hardest possible water in Guelph, and that's possibly the alkaline. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. By
Steve,
the way, they grow wild up in the Rocky Mountains at altitudes of 8,000 to 10,000 feet. I've been up outside of Jasper. There, I took a summer ride up one of the chairlifts and walked up as far as I could get, and the place was covered with these gorgeous delphiniums. Now, I don't even know whether these are native. There are many native forms, by the way, but they're also one of these plants that is native all the way across Europe and Asia. So whether somebody sowed them up there or not, I don't know who would have, because we were way up. I was way up on top of a mountain. But that's what they like, 4 or 5 feet of snow cover.
and these are the big tall ones that are very hybridized too, right?
Absolutely, but they were all one color, so I don't think they were planted there. Oh, here's some interesting things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is another one I had a problem with. We think you have fire witch on your
Fire witch. I was in Germany in a garden center in October one year, 50 years ago, and I saw this full blooming Dianthus in a pot, and I asked what it was. It was called Coreopsis, meaning fire witch, which I translated, which, by the way, is not according to the rules of botany. You don't translate, but I do, because Coreopsis wouldn't sell very well in my catalog. I smuggled off a couple of plants in my dirty socks, as I recall, grew them on for a year and took cuttings, gave some to my friend and colleague Dale Hendricks, who was propagating for a company in Pennsylvania at the time, propagated tens of thousands and sent them off to various other wholesale producers. And within about 5 years, it became the largest selling Dianthus in the United States. And I'm not exaggerating to say, just 2 nurseries that I know of, between them, were selling over $500,000 a year.
Wow.
Again,
That's a lot of Dianthus.
the reason why is that when it is in full bloom, it is totally covered. You can't see any foliage at all.
Yeah.
But it does it again in the fall if it likes where it is.
I know that we've grown fire witch, but I couldn't find any pictures for sure that were fire witch. But I do know that it is one tough customer.
Yeah.
We have some started up by the road because we had it by the road at our other house.
Yeah.
The English books all said that it was a short-lived perennial. For us, I found tires could roll over it, and 4 years later it's still there, and 10 years later it's still there. And it's spread. It was a nice ground cover. But
by the way, conversely, the Europeans do not consider delphiniums to be short-lived.
not delphiniums.
I'm talking delphiniums,
okay.
whereas we do vice versa with Dianthus.
yeah,
The irony is that most of the Dianthus species and their hybrids derive from plants that are European and Asian. There are very few Dianthus species native to the United States, and those are not very attractive. So their own plant grows better here than it does there. And
Now the fire witch does have a blue-gray foliage.
Yes,
to it, doesn't
that's
it?
another
That's
thing.
also another thing.
Which is nice, and it's
Yeah.
low. It doesn't get over maybe 6 inches tall, so it is a front of a border option. The other picture you have there, it looks like
Over the
sedum
stones.
Angelina.
Over the stone.
Oh.
Yeah, see the Angelina's crept into the, and that one, I don't think that one was Fire Witch, but it had the blue foliage that Fire Witch has, and that I thought you might want to show.
Oh,
Yeah, like maybe Mountain Mist.
oh,
or
I see.
Pikes Peak
Well, I think
has
we were
the-
going to talk about Angelina, but that's an interesting plant too.